Hello, welcome all to the Java session. I'm Amrutavati and today our topic will be data types and the variables. So let's begin with the data types. So what is data type in Java? So as the name suggests, data type specifies the type of the data that can be stored in a variable, and that variable name can be given by the developer or the programmer as per his or her convenience. So it allows to store the value in the variable. And when we are giving any data type and variable, so it gets stored in the memory depending upon the size and the value type of that data. For example, so for storing the student data, we can have its ID and name. So ID will be stored as int and name will be stored as a data type string. Okay. So mainly there are two types of data. So primitive data type and non-primitive data type. So what are the differences between these? So primitive data types are predefined. That is, it is already defined by the Java, or it is system defined, you can say. And these are the simple data types and have the predefined size as it is developed already. So it has predefined size, and the primitive data types are stored in the stack. There are different memory units available in the Java, like stack memory, heap memory, object memory is also there. So primitive data types are stored in stack. And one more data type is primitive data type, or you can call it as a reference data type. So these are defined by the programmer or the developer. So as it is defined by the developer, so it can have variable size or the data, and it may be an array of different size. Um, okay, and non-primitive data types are stored in a heap memory. So there are basically eight different primitive data types, which you can see in the screen also. So first is the byte. So as the primitive data types are having predefined size, so each and every primitive data type is having its size, you can see. And also it has a default value. So default value, it is a when we are not giving any value to that data, so it considers the default one. And it also has the range. So range means what is the range for that data type. So so there is a simple formula to calculate the range, that is minus 2 raised to n minus 1. 2, this is the minimum range. To maximum range, how you will calculate that? 2 raised to n minus 1 minus 1. So from that by that formula you can um, get the minimum and maximum range for the particular data type. So first is the byte, which is having 8 bits size, which is having the default value as 0 and the range as minus 128 to 127. Short. Short, it is having 16 bits and having the range as minus 32768 to 32767. Also integer is after short, which is double in size, that is 32-bit and having the range as this one. So next is long, so which is used to have that to define the data which is higher than the integer, but and its size is 64 bits, and this is the range. The default value for the long is also 0. So float is used to give the point values like 0.0, 4.0. So decimal point you can give by using the float, and it has the size of 32 bits. After that it is a double, so it is the double than float, having the default value as same 0.0. The next one is boolean. Boolean used to define the true or false data type. So it has 1 bit memory and the default value is the false. If you are not giving any value, then by default it will be the false. So example will be true or the false. So 1 is for true, 0 is for false. The next is char. Char is having the size as 16-bit. This default value is there and the range is 0 to 65535. So character is A, B, C, capital A, small a. So this is the character. So variables. Now we will see variables. So variables, you have data type. Okay. So how you are going to store the data type? So you need a variable. So variable is a data container that saves the data values during the Java program execution. So it is, so you have defined int string name, but what will be the value for that? So suppose string name is equal to PICT. So variable name will be that name or the college name. Okay, so it is the name given to the memory address. It is the basic unit of storage. Variable value can be changed during the course of the program execution. That while executing the program, so that variable value can be changed. Okay, so all the operation which are carried out on the variable affects its memory location. So when we are proceeding with the Java, our Java programs, then you will got to know that how the variable affects its memory allocation. Okay, so let's see an example that int is the data type, id is the variable name, and what is the value of that variable? So it will be the 123. So integer int is equal to 123. So as another take another example also, string name. So name cannot be stored in integer, so it should be a string. It cannot be stored as a char also, but it is not a one character. So name is the full string. So string name is equal to xyz. So here the variable name will be name, data type will be string, and value will be xyz. Okay, got to know how variables are defined. Okay, so let's go. So while defining the Java variable, you have to follow certain rules. Okay, so what are these rules? So let's see one by one. So variable name consists of the capital letter, lowercase letters, the digits 0 to 9, and the two special characters which are allowed while declaring the Java variables, that are underscore and the dollar sign. Okay, so variable name should not be start with a digit, so that will give the um, compilation issue. Okay, blank spaces are not allowed in the variables name. Blank spaces like space, so you cannot give string my name. So my space name you cannot give like that. You can have my name, my, and n capital name. So that joint word you can give, but blank space is not allowed. So Java keywords cannot be allowed as a cannot be used as a variable name, because Java keywords are the reserved ones. So you cannot use that as a variable name with variable names. And these are case sensitive. So variable names which you are defining or declaring, that are case sensitive. So there is a no limit on the length of the variable, but by convention it should be between 4 to 15 characters only. And variable name always should exist in the left side of that assignment. So you have to follow that pattern. So data type, name, assignment operator. If you are allocating any variable value, so that should be at the left hand of that assignment operator. Okay, so some of the valid variable names are variable name, you can give like that, variable name in all caps, underscore variable name, as I told you, the underscore and the dollar sign are allowed in the variable name. Okay, so this one is with the dollar sign. Then variable name one, it can consist of digits 0 to 9, or variable name underscore 1. Underscore is also allowed. Okay, so we will see one by one the types of the variables. So there are three types of variables. First is local variable and instance variable and a static variable. So let's see one by one. So first is the local variable. So the local variable is one which is defined inside a method or the constructor. So there are mainly two types of methods. One is the class method and one is the constructor. And local variables are defined in the method or the constructor. And the local variable scope is within the method only in which it is defined. So outside that method, it is not accessible. Okay, you should initialize the variable before using in define the scope. Okay? Initialization is very important when you are going to define the scope of that variable. Variables are stored on the stack and they are destroyed once we exit from that method. So as the local variables are defined in the method or the constructor, once the control has exited from that particular method or the constructor, that that access is destroyed. Okay, so that variable will be destroyed. For example, if we consider public void addition, so this is the method, the local method, you can say integer number is equal to 0. So in this is the local variable. Integer num is equal to 0, it is local variable. Num is equal to num plus 7. We are just um, doing some data manipulation for that variable, and then system.out.println the number is num and a close curly bracket. So if you are trying to access the number outside this method, then you are not allowed because that scope is in the method only. Okay, so the next type of variable is instance variable. So the variable which is specific to the instance object of that class, that is called as the instance variable, and it is not mandatory to initialize the instance variable. The the scope of that instance variable is within the declared class. So instance variables are specific to the instance of that class, and that scope of that variable is within the declared class only, and it is destroyed when the object is destroyed. The instance variables have the access modifiers like public, private, protected, and the default. So when we go in the next topic, so we will learn what is private, what is public, what is protected, and default. So let's see an example. Like this is our class, public class student. So in the student, we have public string name is equal to ABC. So the instance variable will be name ABC. So this is the instance variable as it is defined in the inside the class. Okay, with the variable value ABC. So next is private integer ID. So this is also a instance variable, but it is having the private access modifier. Okay, public void print, and in that we are printing the name and the ID. Okay, so name and ID will be print as name ABC and ID as a default. What is the default value for the integer? Yeah, it is 0. Okay, so in the public static void main string args student is equal to new student. Here we are instantiating the class. So what is our class name? Student. So what is the object of the class? Student. How we are going to initialize the class or instantiating the class? New student. So this will create the object student, and for accessing the print method we will take student dot print object of the class and then print. So what will be the output of the program? So it will print the name and the ID. So I hope you have got the local variable and the instance variable. Okay, the last variable type is a static variable. So static variables are also similar with that as a instance variable, but the difference between the static variable and the instance variable is that instance variables are specific to that class, but static variables are declared by using the static keyword and that are within the class and that are not particular to the method, that can be outside the method constructor, or it can have a static block. Inside the static block also we can declare the static variables. So we can only have one copy of a static variable once per class. So per class only one variable is there with the scope as a static variable. Okay, so static variables are not associated with the class, so that are created at the type at the start of the program execution and destroyed automatically when the execution ends. So before when the compiler or the when the JDK starts the program execution, at that time static variables are created. And for the static variable, the initialization of that variables is not mandatory. Default value is 0. And as I mentioned, it is not specific to the class, so we can access the static variable without using the object. That static variables can be accessed directly from the class name. So let's see an example static variable. So this is our class person. Here the two variables are there, age and the name, int age and string name as a static one. So the static method, so we are defining here the static method, static void display. So in the static method we can only access the static variables, and in the static method we cannot use the non-static variables. This is the main difference. So this is the static method, we can have the static um variables here, age and the name. So we are just printing out the age and the name. Okay, this is also the static method. So the first entry point, which is our entry point, main method. So main method is also a static method. Why it is a static method? Because we that is the entry point and we are calling that method without creating the instance of the class. Okay, so main method is static one. So we will see the syntax of main method once again, that is public static void main string args. Here we are initializing the static variables. Age is equal to 30, name is equal to Steve, and we are calling the display method. As we are also discussed that static variables or the methods can be accessible directly with or without the object. So display is the static method, we can call directly display method. So this will call the display method and print the age and the name. So what age is 30, age is 30 and name is Steve. Okay, so I hope you have got with the data type and the variables, variable type, how to initialize the variable. Okay, so let's have the quiz. Okay, so first question is, what is the size of integer in Java? 16-bit, 32 bits, 64 bits, and last one is depends on the execution environment. So think on it. What will be the output? What will be the answer? What is the size of integer that is mentioned in the chart which I have showed you? Yeah, the size of the integer is 32 bits. Okay. So the next question is, how many primitive data types are there in the Java? Yeah, 6, 7, 8, 9. What is the correct answer? Yeah. So there are 8 primitive data types. Primitive data types are system defined. And what are they? Yeah. So I have shared you that in this in that table. So next one is where to declare the local variable. Okay, the options are it declares inside the class and outside the method. It declares inside the class with the specific prefix and outside of the method, or it is declared inside the method. So what is the correct answer? Is it defined inside the class and outside the method? No. Is it inside the class with the static prefix? No. Static prefix is for the static variables, not for the local variables. Yes, then the correct answer is it declares inside the method or the constructor. Okay, so the correct answer is it declares inside the method. Okay, and the last one, which is the valid variable name? So there are uh, certain rules to define the variable name, to declare the variable name. So what are the valid one in the options below? A, B, C. Okay, so the first is okay, second, third, which is the valid one? Yeah, the third one. The variable name can start with the underscore or the dollar sign. So first and third are not the right choices because the variable name cannot start with the digit and not with the special character. So and is not the character which is allowed in the variable name. So the option is last one, underscore team. Okay. So C option is correct. Okay. Thank you and happy learning.